Looks like most of us are connected, ready to go. Thank you very much for being here this afternoon. Welcome to our first Edu Talk of 2023. And we have a very interesting topic this afternoon that we're going to be talking about, which is wearing multiple hats, the intersection between translators, interpreters, liaisons, and more in school. Who's going to be presenting today? We have Dr. Holly Silvestri, who's a coordinator of training, translation, and curriculum at the National Center for Interpretation. And she specializes in community interpreting and interpreter and translator training. She is the co-chair of our Ethics and Standards Committee here at AAITE. And along with Holly, we also have Manar Kodamah, who is a district liaison, educational interpreter translator, Office of Civil Rights, homeless foster students coordinator, and a cultural advocate at Dearborn Public Schools. And we also have Mujahed Hasan, who is a former language assistant of the United Nations Assistance Mission for Iraq. He has a BA in English Literature from the University of Baghdad, and he is currently the family liaison bilingual, Arabic for the Special Education Department at the Cajon Valley Union School District in San Diego. So without further ado, Holly, take it away.
So the first part of this is my part, and I'm going to be talking about dual role positions in different settings. What many of you probably realize, but some of you may not, is that this is kind of a uniquely American problem, this dual role thing, the bilingual thing, because most of the rest of the countries that have interpreting and translation professionals don't have the issue of being sort of multicultural necessarily, and they also don't have the bilingual pay that sort of pops up here and there in the United States. So dual role positions are really absolutely nothing new in the field of community interpreting, even in some parts of legal interpreting where it doesn't overlap with community interpreting. It's a common practice due to a lack of understanding of the general public of the ethical issues it presents for the interpreters. In medical, which is also community interpreting, if you don't know, there is a frequent use of bilingual personnel, quote unquote, right? Sometimes they have proficiency testing in their languages, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's with an additional salary boost, sometimes not, right? You have the example of CNAs, nurses, some physical therapists or occupational therapists, et cetera, who also serve as, quote, the interpreter on occasion. I have examples here, and I'm going to show you a couple. The first example. So this is the article that was first linked. It's an and I will give you these links in after my presentation so you can go and look at them, but it is a Catholic hospital in the DC area. I think it's in Richmond. And yeah, Bon Secours, Richmond. And they are writing this in 2015. So this is not a new problem. In fact, it's much older than this particular article might say. Another example on the other side of the country is this organization, which is out of Seattle. Right, you can see here, it's in Seattle, Washington. And they also talk about their mission where they have different people wearing different hats, but at the same time in the medical profession. And another article, oh, forgive me, this is not an article, but this is when NCIHC first did an open call where they had dual role interpreters come, and they were talking about where they fit in a language access program. So this is way back in 2007. So you can see this is still a longstanding problem that is occurring in the medical interpreting field. So it's not a surprise that it occurs in education as well. The other area where this occurs is in legal, which sometimes overlaps with community and sometimes doesn't. So a reminder here that legal interpreting in general is broader than just court interpreting. Court interpreters, I'm excluding from this presentation because when they're working in court, that's their only role in that arena. However, legal interpreting happens in many other places like attorneys' offices or social services offices. And here the issue is much like medical interpreting in that there are many people who serve multiple roles, like a paralegal or a legal secretary who's also an interpreter sometimes, depending. A social worker who's helping someone obtain food stamps who also is interpreting for them. So, and it has the same issues. Sometimes there's a bump in pay. Sometimes they're vetted as interpreters, or sometimes they're just the default kind of bilingual employee that gets called upon to do this. An additional area where this happens is in law enforcement. You have, oftentimes you'll have bilingual police officers also serve as interpreters. And NAJIT has a whole, and NAJIT, for those of you who don't know, is the National Association of Judiciary Interpreters and Translators. It's the professional organization for court interpreters, but also for legal interpreters and translators in general. They have a paper, and I'm about to show you that paper because they do talk about this, even in court interpreting in the sense, or in the legal sense. They have a whole section of the paper that they published, which again, you will have access to all of these links, but I want to get through this part of the presentation where they do talk about, can bilingual people serve as interpreters? And it does present some problems for them, and they do talk about that in there. So you can read from the legal perspective as well, why that can be problematic. Now, the other thing that that you may or may not know is that the courts are relatively divided on the ethics of this issue when it's with respect to bilingual lawyers. Some courts in the United States have held that an attorney can simultaneously act as an interpreter, while other courts hold that such double duty is an ethical violation, which is kind of interesting. So it has yet to be determined in the legal field as well, the boundaries that we're talking about with respect to the multiple hats issue. Now, USCIS, which is basically immigration interpreting, talks about this as well. And they talk about, using unpaid professionals, using people who are not necessarily trained, but just are bilingual personnel. I'm not going to open that document, but I will let you read what they had to say about that as well. So this touches an enormous amount of areas in addition to education. Now, that being said, I do want to talk about how this is affecting the educational setting. These are documents that we did in the Joint Task Analysis Group. We did a survey of 304 job descriptions in the educational field, job descriptions for both signed language interpreter, as you can see here, this one is, and spoken language interpreters. This one, you can see the job title category. There is a category of other, and if you look at the total of 117, the other category, which is not an interpreter or an interpreter, an educator, or whatever other name they may have called it for sign language. So we don't know what those others are. We do know they're in the educational field, but they're nearly 10% of the total number of people or total number of job descriptions had this other listed. And you can see that they're doing interpreting in all of these different settings. They're not interpreting in hearings, thank God. But it's pretty interesting to note that this is not just in the spoken language world either. There are some interesting boundaries being crossed elsewhere. For spoken language interpreter job descriptions, you can see that the names of the job titles, I've put the ones in red that I think are relevant, are sometimes rather vague, bilingual, other. And you can see that those categories as well, right, of the 182 spoken language interpreter job description, 13 were other, 18 said their job description was bilingual, and 13 said liaison of some type. You know, and we'll learn today that there's many, many types of liaisons. So that's a big chunk of that 182 total. And you can see as you look across, they're doing a lot of things. Maybe not as much, you know, thank goodness, medical and legal documents as far as translating, but still, there are some boundaries being crossed there as well. If we're talking about if your job title is just interpreter or just translator. So that was just to give you an idea of, you know, around the globe kind of with respect to the different types of education. We're going to pass the word on now to Mujahed Hasan, who is himself a family/community liaison. Mujahed, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. For those of you who might have missed the introduction, my name is Mujahed Hasan. I'm the family liaison of Cajon Valley Union School District in San Diego, California. I'm going to go over the details of our duties in a nutshell. I'm going to turn off my video and start sharing. Yeah, so for Cajon Valley, we have family liaisons whose role is mainly revolving around the IEP process. And we also have community liaisons who are working with educational services. So I'm going to go over like as fast as I can, just to allow more time for the breakout rooms. And I would definitely be more than happy to answer any questions there. Our duties as family liaisons, we have 2 for Arabic and we have 2 for Spanish, and for other languages and for other languages of lesser diffusion, we outsource. So our essential duties are mainly to translate IEPs, reports, correspondence, forms, letters, and other educational materials from English to a designated second language. We proofread and assure accuracy of translated materials, and we review, edit, and revise translations. We also, and this is the daily basis activity that we do, is that we provide interpretation services to facilitate communication between various individuals, communicate with students, parents, staff, and others in English and a designated second language. We serve as an interpreter for IEP meetings, assessments, and various phone calls, conferences, or other events. We serve as an informational resource to parents concerning special education programs and services. We also respond to inquiries and provide information concerning related IEPs, processes, reports, activities, standards, eligibility practices, goals, objectives, standards, and policies and procedures. We also assist in coordinating and arranging various programs and services to meet the needs of children and parents. We assist parents and others when applying for and enrolling in various programs and services, and we distribute, explain, and translate and assist parents with completing the required forms and application. We also meet like every now and then and confer with and interview parents in the identification of family needs and issues. We provide information and materials to parents to assist in the location and utilization of special education services. And we also refer families to district and community resources and services as appropriate. We also assist in coordinating and arranging translation services for students and families. We schedule and arrange meetings between the schools and parents, and as well as we receive and respond to translation requests and maintain and update related schedules and calendars. We schedule and conduct home visits as well. We also schedule, coordinate, and assist with conducting assessments. We monitor and assess, we observe and report to student and family needs, issues, and progress. We follow up to assure student and family needs are being met. We assist families with various issues related to the special education needs of students. We research, we reassemble, and distribute a variety of information and materials to meet student, parent, and school needs and requests. We prepare, distribute, and respond to a variety of correspondence. We collect, process, submit, and review forms and documents for completeness and accuracy. We also assist with developing, implementing, and assisting students and families in meeting various educational plans, goals, and objectives. We coordinate services to meet various students and family needs. That's basically what we do on a daily basis in special education. Our title is a little confusing and vague for the parents as well as for the school staff. That's why sometimes we have to explain our role. Sometimes it's a little bit challenging for us to determine which hat we're going to switch to. when we are like conducting assessments or like doing the IEP interpreting for families. On the other hand, we have educational services. They have around 18 people who are working as community liaison this time. And their main duties are, they are serving as a liaison, again, between teachers, parents, students, staff, administrators, and community regarding educational programs, services, and student issues. They receive and they process, they respond to requests and referrals for intervention, informational, and services from parents, staff, faculty, and others. They meet and confer with parents and others in the identification of students' needs and issues, and they provide information and materials and assist in the location and utilization of school and community services and resources. They refer parents and others to school services or community resources as appropriate. They are actually kind of very familiar faces because they are actually working on site in different schools. We cover elementary and middle schools. Compared to us, the family liaisons for special ed, we work in the school district itself, in the district office. They also provide outreach, liaison, and guidance services to assist in resolving student issues and problems related to behavioral, psychological, and medical and other matters. They work with parents, teachers, and others in developing and implementing strategies, goals, and objectives for resolving student issues. They also serve as an informational resource to parents, staff, and others concerning school programs, services, student issues, and other matters. And they respond to inquiries and provide information concerning related activities, standards, guidelines, practices, goals, objectives, processes, policies, and procedures. They also coordinate access to health, mental health, public assistance, employment, which is a big part of their role, which is a little bit different from what we do for special education, because that's a different thing. Housing and other community services, they provide support to families in developing skills and enhancing knowledge and utilization of various district and community services. They assist with coordinating program referrals, intake, and assessment functions. They work with staff, faculty, families, outside agencies, and others in developing goals, objectives, and strategies for resolving barriers and issues, accessing services, and enhancing the educational well-being of students. They compose, they distribute, and respond to a variety of correspondence related to assigned liaisons, and they support services, And they also initiate and receive telephone calls. They schedule and arrange various student, parent, and other appointments as assigned. They schedule, arrange, and conduct home visits as well. They contact parents to discuss student needs, issues, and progress, and provide assistance in meeting student goals and objectives. They follow up on student issues, progress, and problems with staff, teachers, and others to assure needs are being met. They also assist both English-speaking and non-English-speaking families with applying for and enrolling in various programs and services. And they distribute, explain, and assist families with completing required forms and applications. So that is it for both family liaisons who are working for special education in my case, and community liaisons who perform on a completely different level, and they deal mostly with community resources and help families in this regard. Thank you so much. I'll stop sharing now.
Mujahed, you must be exhausted. That's a very long job description. I think you're very underpaid. I can sense it. All right, Manar.
Please.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Manar, and as Holly said, I am the district liaison for Dearborn Public Schools. What I'm going to talk about today is the requirement and the qualification requested by our district for the district liaison job. So reflecting on what Mujahed said, we do have a community liaison for general ed and special ed, and we also do have parent liaison, but the job description is specifically for the district liaison. So the person who's responsible for the language program across the whole district, that including in my case, it's going to include 35 schools. So the goal of the job is to coordinate and implement language assistance program to families in the district. The title, as I said, is a district liaison. So it is part of the Students and Family Service Department. although the district liaison worked with every department, all department, including special ed. So the qualification here are different than the qualification for the community liaison and parent. The first one is must be fully proficient in reading, writing, of course, speaking and listening for both English and Arabic. Or we can say the target and the source language, but because our district is 99% of our population, if we can say, is from an Arabic background. So we hire just an Arabic liaison, but other staff member who are bilingual can help with other languages, or we can subcontract. So qualifications also are 2 years of college, so they do not require any specific degree or certificate in translation, demonstrate ability to relate to the needs and concern of the diverse ethnic and social economic background of the parents. So we have to be aware about their culture, their economic situation, where they are coming from, their everything about the country, the family, we need to be aware of to be able to serve them better and explain to the or make the connection between them and the school. Proficiency in problem solving and multitasking, demonstrate organizational skills to carry out all of the responsibilities specified in the job description, must have experience working with computers, including Microsoft Office, all these stuff in Arabic, so we can translate. The responsibilities. So these was the qualifications only. These are the qualifications they need. So as you can see, there's no specifics in translation or interpreting. If you are good and if you pass the test, we do have a test, pass the test in Arabic and English translation, both direction. And it's a very, very simple test. When I was hired for the job, they only asked me to do the translation test. There was no test for interpreting. Right now, after 7 years working with them, I am responsible for doing the test, and whoever is gonna apply, even for the community liaison, I ask them to take the test, and I created a translation and an interpreting test in both languages. So the responsibility is sorry, I can't see the first one because of that tool. Okay. Assist the school and district staff in communicating with family. So that's include also phone calls. It's not just translation or interpreting in meetings, different type of meetings across the board is also, if they need anything, they call me sometimes to call parents for any reason if they cannot assist them, transportation, special ed, appointments, even discussing grades, parent-teacher conference. Interpret, translate, develop all vital documents as determined by the district office, secure telephonic interpretation, arrange interpreting, translating for all language assistance needed, which is number 4, is basically subcontracting. So if we have a language, we don't have a bilingual person who's qualified to help in this, in a meeting, for example, or if the meeting like an IEP, I cannot trust any bilingual person to do it. It's part of my job to contact an agency and to subcontract with an interpreter to be in attendance to help in these meetings. Maintain all logs and all record keeping related to the language assistance. This is related to OCR. OCR is the abbreviation of the Office of Civil Rights, where we are mandated every year to show them what type of language service we presented our parents with, how often, when, what setting. So everything we do, starting from signing in sheet. So we do have a sign-in sheet. If they come to the main office in any of our buildings, whether it's a school or the main building, the administrative building, they have to sign. If they need an assistant in Arabic, we have a person to help. That person has to put their initial or signature, because we submit this log to the OCR by the end of every school year, including the portfolio that we submit includes everything we do. Translation, samples, the log samples, phone calls, robocalls, Any assignments, we use a subcontract agency. So we submit, sometimes we submit the requests, we submit the invoices. So everything we do to serve our families, language-wise and language service, we do have them together by the end of the school year, put them together electronically right now, and we send them a letter, and they have an access for our blog, for the translation blog, for everything, for the school blogs, to see what do we put in Arabic. And right now we are trying to add Spanish for everything going out, because the demand for Spanish is increasing in our district. So interpret and translate handout and documents, kind of is the same thing that Mujahed talked about. We have to do all of that. Establish formal and informal communication channel with the school and personnel to purpose interpreting and translating relevant information. So again, most of that, just like Mujahed said, we have to be the bridge between the family and the school, meet with the relevant department members. So that's could be different because, as I said, I work with all departments, starting from finance to the board representative and the board meetings. So I am in attendance on all of that. And I also help with the community partners if they need an interpreting or translation service at any time. Assist with implementing and evaluation of language assistant procedures. So when we are audits, it's my responsibility to make sure that everything we want is there for the audits. If they have any question, if they have any concerns, if they need any clarification. So that's my responsibility to make sure that the audits are happy and we are compliant. Other duties are assigned. So this is kind of vague. Whatever is they ask us to do or they ask me to do, I really have to do it because it's part of my contract. I can't say no. So the first one is to be the OCR coordinator. Before I get this job, we used to have an OCR coordinator, and then we have a district liaison. After I become the liaison, they mix them together. So right now I am the OCR coordinator. I am the homeless and foster coordinator. I am the bilingual community liaison trainer. So I am the one who provide training for our district staff. Social work and counselor trainer. Also, I give them training about how to work with culture training for homeless and foster, for language services. Like I said, culture diversity trainer, build community relationship to provide for essential needs of student parents in need. So I have to have a relationship with the organization like Rotary Club, like Exchange Club, like our city, with the mayor, with the big stores like Kroger, Target, Meijer. So I reach out to them if we have a family that's having a hardship, especially if the family cannot speak Arabic. So that's part of my job, to communicate between the family and these organizations or small businesses in our community to help. I represent our district in any community forums. So if we have, for example, meeting for the refugees or a newcomer I have in the city or district or statewide or even county-wide, I go and I represent my district there, and I will be this also again the bridge between our district and these organizations. Mandated reporter when needed. So this is where my multiple hat goes. So when I am in the middle of a meeting and the job I'm performing in that meeting does not allow me to be a reporter, I will wait and I finish, and when I leave, most of the time the school staff reach out to me and ask me, okay, you were attending in this meeting, what do you think we're supposed to do? It's a tricky case. Do we call someone? Do we like inform authority? And then we discuss it after I finish my interpreting role. Office clerks sometimes. So if they need me sometimes, if we have a huge number of enrollment at the same time, we do have right now 3 people speaks Arabic in our student service department, but sometimes during season of, and I will call it season because it's really season, the season of enrollment, they will have at least 20 families waiting online and they need more people. So I step out of my office, go to the main office and start working in enrollment, in helping the parents, in explaining, filling out paper with them, just to make it easy for everyone. And with that, I think I concluded my presentation. Thank you so much, and I will stop sharing right now.
And the only one who is working harder than Mujahed is Manar. Oh my goodness, you guys are seriously underpaid. You need to be winning Mega Millions for all that you do. Thank you both. So before we break out into breakout groups, I thought it might be wise to maybe ask if you had any questions about what we said. So if you do have a question, just type it in the chat and we'll happily answer it.
I have a question.
Sure, Ifat, go for it.
How do they separate between the two rules to avoid the conflict of interest if they are interpreting and at the same time helping the family?
Do you want me to answer that?
Sure.
Okay, so usually if I take notes while I'm interpreting, and then if I notice something, I circle it and I wait. So I don't say anything until we finish and I wait. I usually don't wait a lot because most of the time the parents, if it's an online or even if it's in person, parents leave before the staff member, which I consider part of. So after that, if they have any concern, if I don't notice anything, you can tell from the staff faces, they want to talk about it and they directly talk to me about it. Okay, Manar, so what do you think? You are the district liaison, you are part of that. You're basically, most of the time when we have a problem with the parents, we reach out to you because you are our first line before we reach to the student service director or to the superintendent's office. So it's my first, the first person they come to is me. So we discuss it this way. And if I notice they did not say anything, I will tell them, so now we finished the assignment. And did you notice 1, 2, 3 about the parents? Please discuss it and see what you need to do. And we go from there. So if they want to report it, sometimes the staff doesn't want to report it. Sometimes I ask for them to just monitor it. So if we, for example, if we notice any homeless signs on the students or the family or the parents, so I ask them to monitor it, keep an eye on the student, keep an eye on the family. Do you think they need something, their food? Are they coming tired? Are they coming eating? What do you notice on them? And then we will talk about it later. So I think it's kind of a relationship we build with the staff member because we are with the same staff all the time. So we see them all the time, we work with them all the time. So we are part of the team outside our interpreting role.
Thank you, Manar. I think we have a question in the chat from Victoria Baldwin. Either, I guess it's Manar because she did this. How did you develop your interpreting test? Can you talk about that briefly?
Yes, so I picked, for the writing test, I picked a letter from one of the schools. So I do have a letter for high school level, middle school level, and elementary level. I picked 2, one in English, one in Arabic, and I used it as the translation test for them. And if they are qualified, so I look at their qualification, before. So if they are highly qualified, I will ask them to translate a part of something more complicated, like an IEP, of course, without the name of the students or anything like that for privacy. If they are little less experienced and they don't have a like a translation degree or work with translation before, I use these letters, and depend on their level and depend on the job they are applying to, I gave them this letter because that's the material they will be working on. So I choose to give them something related to their job. For interpreting, it's also the same thing. I picked 2 TED Talk presentation, one in Arabic, one in English, and also related to education and all these stuff. And I picked for like, I think like a minute and 15 seconds, a minute of 15 seconds. I explained to them how to take the test. I left the room empty for them. I give them a recorder, a headphone, a notepad and a paper, and tell them, you can listen to this and you're gonna take notes and you can interpret. And then when they finish, I listen to the recording and I look at their skills and evaluate it. And then I do a recommendation. If this person passed the four part of the test, I recommend them for the job. If not, I will call them back telling them we're sorry, maybe in another time.
Thank you, Manar. I believe this is also addressed to you. You seem to be it today. After the candidate passes the test, is there specific training or on the role of the interpreter? That is a question
Yes.
from Alejandra.
Yes. So if they pass the training, the test, and if there's writing skills are great, and I don't see any problem in English and Arabic, they are okay and they are approved as a translator. The problem most of the time we face is in the interpreting role. They tend either to try to translate and say it word by word, or this is the major issues I see, or they try to summarize it so much to a point that a minute and 15 seconds will be a one sentence in Arabic or one sentence in English. Then here, if I see that there's a potential in them and they were scared or nervous, I will give them another chance. And then we will follow up with three training sessions during the year to teach them the basics, how they can, 3 for translation and 3 for interpreting. So how they going to deal with interpretation in different way than translation, what's the thing that they have to focus on, how to take notes, how to ask people for clarification. So I give them 3 training sessions. Hopefully I'm trying to make it more, but again, most of our staff member has more than one hat. And if they attend a lot of training, they're going to hate me at the end. So I'm trying not to.
She's also a one-woman show, guys, remember. So there may be a lot to be desired in what she's doing, but she's doing the best that she can. So are there any other questions before we head to our breakout room? For Mujahed, how many IEPs do you translate a month?
Oh, that's you said a translation?
Yes.
Well, basically, we are using Trados, which is actually an amazing tool for us. Before I joined the district, they were not using any CAT tool. They were just doing it manually. So as soon as I joined, I suggested that we start using Trados. So it actually made a huge difference in terms of finishing more IEPs. It basically depends on the whole package. I was just discussing this with my coworkers today because we are getting so many requests every single day, and it's not basically the IEP, it's just basically we have to deliver the whole package, which includes the assessment results, the reports, the psychoeducational report, and you name it. So sometimes it can take forever. Again, it's just because my role is kind of like I have multiple roles all in one. It's if most of the time I'm away doing interpreting at meetings, we barely finish anything. But at the time when the school is not in session, we go back and interpret. Usually I can finish an IEP in one day with the help of Trados, a full IEP, full document. But again, because depending on the specific student, they may have more reports. So it could take us like a long time. So basically it depends on my availability as well as the complexity of the case of the disability.
And then
the
final question, thank you so much, that we will have time for is there a use of machine translation in your school?
This is for me?
For everybody.
Yeah, I answered. I said Trados. It's RWS
Okay.
now. Before it was.
That's a CAT tool. It's not machine translation, but yes. Okay. Does
Yes,
everyone
yeah,
understand a CAT tool? That's computer assisted translation tool. Trados is TRADOS. It's one of the applications that can help translate documents.
Yeah, because Trados is offering machine translation. It's called NMT, neuro whatever translation. So
I mean, that's a whole other webinar that we can talk about there. Okay, machine translation versus CAT tools, but just to make sure that everybody's clear on that. All right, I think it's time for us to break into our little breakout rooms. Alex.
Okay. So we've got a total of 5 rooms we're going to be splitting up, and I'll go ahead and open them up if y'all are ready.
All right, it looks like most of us are back.
Yes, I had a couple of people that had to leave early, but I will kick it off as we end up here by doing a little overview of what we discussed in my session, and I would ask that each of our breakout leaders do the same. Try and keep it under a minute or so, or a minute or 2 minutes if you could. So we had an interesting group from many different parts of the country. We had from California, we had from Colorado, we had from Virginia. There are many, many places that call it a family liaison. Some call it a school liaison. And then we've had even a family, school, community liaison. Let's get it all in. And then we had a little discussion on how we say those titles in the other language, because that wasn't even something that the school took into account. So we had a little laugh over that, because it's, it's long in English, but then it's like 9 words in Spanish. And you're just like, okay, but is that what you tell families? And they're like, no, I use the first 2 words. And I was like, yep, that's pretty much what happens. Many of the complex liaison positions, though, focused on creating relationships. So although one said that they do translate and interpret, most of them didn't. They were told that they shouldn't, and that they should focus on creating relationships with the family. We did see, though, that it depends on the language. Spanish is the 800-pound gorilla. And then the other languages, especially lesser languages or lesser diffusion languages, have different titles and different functions, because they're not as readily available amongst the population. So that was interesting. Can we have the next person go?
I'll go.
Perfect. Linda, you're up.
So we had a really nice conversation in our group. We had a few that their titles were community liaison. We had one bilingual EL teacher who was also a certified community trainer for interpreters. And many that had interpreter translator in their role. There were some others that had new positions or different positions in their districts that were kind of filling that family liaison role. And those were called community outreach or community liaison. In one very, very fortunate district, there was a community liaison for each language, which is amazing. And maybe you guys want to guess what state that was, but there
California?
was.
No. Oh, California.
Yes,
Okay.
California.
It's either California or Minnesota, because those are the 2.
California, of course. They had a mom community liaison, an Arabic community liaison, and a Spanish community liaison. Yeah, we had a really nice discussion. We talked about some of the challenges that might come up when you have dual roles. There was someone mentioned that sometimes you're at an IEP interpreting and the parents request a translation and they want the document, like in, 2 days, and it's like a 40-page document. So even the challenge of being an interpreter and translator, people not understanding that you are committed to a district or a school. So there's several other families that have, these needs. We had 2 ends of the spectrum that were really interesting. We had one of our interpreters that was also the bilingual ELD teacher who lived in a rural area and is one of maybe 2 interpreters or people that speak Spanish in the district. And she mentioned some of the challenges that she has with wanting to advocate for her families, because there's like 2 people in the school district that speak the language. So we talked about the challenges, that arise with that when there's not a lot of people out there that are supporting. And then on the other end, our interpreter from California that has community liaisons in every language, she talked about how she doesn't struggle with that because her role is very well defined. She enforces her code of ethics. She doesn't have knowledge of these other things that some of these other interpreters do, because she can just stick to interpreting and translating, because there are other roles that fill those positions and that support the families in different ways. So that was interesting, just having that conversation.
Yeah.
Our ELD teacher did mention that because she's an ELD teacher, she has a relationship with the families. So she's able to talk to them beforehand and say, hey, we're going to have an IEP meeting in a couple days. I need you to ask questions. I need you to do X, Y, and Z, because when I'm interpreting, I can't do those things for you. So don't call me the next day and ask me 50 questions about what happened because I can only interpret at that meeting. So she has a little bit of a different role because she has a separate relationship with her parents. So that was just interesting of how she's found that workaround because
she's got a back channel because she knows the kids and she knows the teachers. Wow. Next group.
I'm the lucky to present from my group.
Excellent.
So we had also a very eclectic group. We have some people who was school liaison. We have a couple of freelancers or people who work with agencies, not directly to the school. And we were comparing on how different the amount of or the freedom of saying that's not my job was when you were an agent, you work for an agency or you're a freelancer versus if you are a school member, you know, sometimes, you know, you have to do it and it's harder to say no. We also talk about, you know, for me, how different things are in different schools and how they manage it in different ways, as some of the other speakers have said about it. And we also talk about how to close the cultural gap, not only focusing on the language itself and translation and interpretation, but working with the parents to train them kind of or explain how the school system works and bring them closer to the schools and to understand how can they better help their kids and how the system works, and some cultural things like, you know, mental health or IEPs are frowned from other cultures, and how to make them understand that, you know, that's their rights and they can so advocate for the families. And also how we need to keep separated, you know, the interpretation with the advocacy in a meeting. So I'm very aligned with what other people have been saying.
Thank you so much. Can we have another group?
Yeah, I'll go next.
Thank you.
So we had a wonderful team because we were able to get information from owners of translation companies. We had a coordinator and from South Carolina, North Carolina, California, Colorado. So it was in Oregon. It was a great group that we had. And we basically, you know, piggyback on what all the other groups are saying. And we focused on the overlap of jobs and challenges because, you know, our group was a little bit different. We are not all translators and interpreters. But one of the things that stood out for me was the guilty feeling for advocating for yourself. That's one of the challenges. And how people negotiate your rates when you have business and your prices, you know, in school districts when they're asking for translation or interpretation. They want things to be done fast and cheap, right? It's not professional. And also the lack of training from school districts, the lack of support from supervisors, also we're not given enough credit for our knowledge or our background or our experience. We have many other hats, not just translators and interpreters, but we are expected to be liaisons and to train and everything for the same price and encompass within your, you know, 7 or 8 hour day. Frustration with supervisors or others telling us that's how it's always been done. You know, why do you want to change things? That's the way we do it.
The old "who moved my cheese" move. I hate that.
And then
It's
while we're
classic in schools, as a former
Oh,
teacher,
yes.
I can tell you, it's not just you guys. They say that to everybody.
And also the constant request to do other things above and beyond. We did talk about that we are translators and interpreters, and that's our passion. But we just can't do everything. We can't do everything and for the same price. And I think that we have just been used to being at the bottom of the ladder, or compared to the lowest paying workers in school districts, and not being paid what we should be paying, like professionals, like who we are.
Right.
And that finally that we also need stronger advocates. And instead of complaining, I like that last comment that we had from one of our members. Instead of complaining, we need to educate others about our profession.
Right. Thank you so much. That sounds like a really rich discussion. Next group.
Okay, so Sandra was leading our session and they had the notes. But the conversation was also very lively in our district, where there was a diversity on how roles were distributed. I think we also found most of the challenges that were found from previous speakers. So for the sake of time, I will bring up something that I heard new in our group. And there was, for example, one of the challenges, time. In what sense? In the sense that the bilingual liaisons and interpreters and all translators in a specific district, they do have the ability to be flexible with their schedule, in the sense that they kind of adjust, they have the trust to adjust their schedule, but it still represents a very big challenge, because that means that things can come up at any time during the day, at the beginning of the day or towards the end. And so the way the schedules are made, even at the individual level, can be a challenge. It is a challenge. Another element that I heard, and team, please, as this is a work together at this point, as our note taker left. In a couple of other, there was a nice testimony about advocacy of an interpreter that has a husband that actually works as a teacher, and he was pulled out as an interpreter all the time. And through the advocacy teachings that our colleague interpreter has done with her husband in his position, now he advocates for interpreters in the sessions where there is a barrier to communication. And so that is a positive effect of splitting themselves, right? From pushing back and saying, no, my job is a teacher and someone else needs to be there to avoid conflict of interest and provide the quality services.
That's wonderful.
Yes, and then other examples come from other colleagues that work in districts where it's only 2 of them covering, if I remember correctly, 12 schools.
Wow.
And so again, there the challenges are scheduling, splitting themselves, and also maybe focusing on some areas other than more than others. Team, if you think that I have neglected everything, please speak up.
Well, it sounds like we have a lot of educating the public to do and a lot of educating our co-workers to do as well with respect to personal boundaries for our own mental health, right? We can't solve all the problems. Anything language access can't just be my problem, amongst others. But that's part of the reason that we form a professional association. So this is going to be an ongoing topic of discussion, I'm sure, but I learned a lot, and I hope that you did as well. It's always wonderful to hear how other schools are handling things, just so that you can get a sense of how deep the poop is in your district as opposed to other districts. So we appreciate the fact that you came today. We hope that you will come back for future discussions on this, because I think it is one of the major topics that people often bring up to me as something that they need to have addressed. So I'm certain that we will address it again, both in future Edu Talks, but also at our conference. That was a segue.
Take it away, Alex.
Thank you, Holly. Yes, this is certainly a very interesting topic that needs further discussion. So we're very happy and glad that all of you were here today to participate in the conversation. Speaking of conference, Holly, we sent out our save the date for our Edu conference that's going to be in Colorado, May 5th and 6th. So please mark it in your calendar. We're trying to encourage as many of us to be there present in person and participate on our very first in-person conference. We have details coming out shortly on the program and the events that we'll be having or will be happening that weekend. But we're excited and we hope to see as many as you there possible. Another reminder that we want to let everybody know here is you probably also got the email in regards to the listserv. The listserv is up and running now. So if you haven't been receiving emails through the listserv, go into your profile, make sure that you are subscribed to the listserv so that we can use this as a tool to communicate, to share resources as well, to ask questions. The more of us that participate, the more resources we will have to grab from. So
many heads are better than one, guys. Ask your questions there and you might get an answer.
Yes. So once again, we want to thank Holly. We want to thank Manar, and we want to thank Mujahed for having this conversation, this presentation with us this afternoon. Thank you everybody for being here today. We always appreciate the time that you guys dedicate to the profession and to moving forward together as an association. We'll see you at our next event. Stay tuned for our future posts and emails. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
everybody.
Have a wonderful evening. Get home safe.